Hello, and welcome to Book of the Mouse Club, episode 25, Thursday, August 22nd, 2019.
Morning, monsieur.
Where are you off to?
The bookshop. I just finished the most wonderful story about a beanstalk and an ogre and...
That's nice. Marie! The baguettes! Hurry up!
I'm sorry, but how can one possibly pay attention to a book with no pictures in it?
My dear child, there are a great many good books in this world without pictures.
I almost bounced clear out of the book. Some bouncing, huh?
Come home or make myself known.
Jane Thaddeus Turtle, Esquire. Have you never met him? You will find his story in this delightful little book, The Wind and the Willows.
I've come to return the book I borrowed.
Finished already?
Oh, I couldn't put it down. Have you got anything new?
Welcome back, listeners. I'm your host, Courtney, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Emily, for our fourth and final installment of our summer series.
Hey, Courtney, and hey, listeners. Thanks for sticking with us this summer as we read Ridley Pearson's Kingdom Keepers series. We are here to discuss the final book in the original Keeper series, The Insider.
So if you've been following along, you're probably going to be familiar with my disclaimer, a bit of a different series for us this summer. We typically look at books more in like an isolated fashion, like individual novels or nonfiction. We have different author interviews, but we decided to switch it up this summer, and we have been covering the 7 original Kingdom Keepers series. There were 3 previous episodes, if you want to go all the way back to episode 22. I believe, if I did that math correctly, maybe 23, somewhere in that range. That's where we've talked about our previous books, and now we're on the final one. So this one is just one book per the episode, so one spoiler warning for you. If you are following along, there are spoilers ahead because we have gone through 6 books now, and we are wrapping things up.
Yep, so let's just take a quick 1-minute recap of where we left off with book 6. In the 6th book, Dark Passage, we were on the Disney Cruise Line. We were on the Disney Dream. And we were following the Keepers as they are trying to spoil the plot that they learned that Chernabog is in hibernation and the Overtakers have a plan to basically kind of raise him from the dead, sort of. And they're using some ancient ruins and other magic led by Tia Dalma from Pirates of the Caribbean to do that. And at the end of that book, they are able to trap the Overtakers and Chernabog in the cave and in the South American ruins. Maleficent is defeated, but we know that Tia Dalma gets away, and that's kind of where we're left off. And we do have the sad death of Dillard, one of the volunteer friends of the Keepers, one of Finn's best friends from his childhood. And that's going to play a role also in the 7th book, so that's why I wanted to mention that. And that's where we left off.
Yeah, so to set us up for the 7th book, I'm just going to go ahead and read the description from the back of the book. The Kingdom Keepers' senior year in high school is almost over. For more than 3 years, things have been quiet. Their battles are long behind them, they agree. The threat to the Disney realm silenced, albeit at a great cost. But inside the catacombs of the Aztec temple, where Finn Whitman faced down his nemesis, the monstrous Chernabog, a new threat brews. Deception and betrayal rock the Kingdom Keepers as the merciless group of Disney villains known as the Overtakers stage an unexpected comeback. But a discovery by the Kingdom Keepers provides them with one hope of a victory-lost icon. It was believed to be gone forever. The Kingdom Keepers have one last chance to preserve the heart of the kingdom, Disneyland, from a terrifying destruction decades in the making.
So, Courtney, we are back in Disneyland, and I want to start with the setting because I thought it was interesting and kind of caught me off guard that unlike books 5 and 6 that ran right into each other, it's now 3 years later again. We take another time jump. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I think we were both pretty surprised by this. So I knew quite literally we were heading towards Disneyland. I've had all 7 books, so the covers have kind of reflected the setting. And at the end of book 6, the Disney Dream pulls up to the port in Los Angeles, and it's like, oh, well, now we get to go to Disneyland. So I figured, we're just going to pick, right back up. Maybe 2 weeks later, they've arrived from their Disney cruise. I was not expecting to jump forward so far in time that like, oh, well, that's pretty much long past them. They've had a quiet high school experience, but now trouble is brewing again.
Yeah, for me, that took me off guard, but in some ways I think it kind of makes sense. It's almost like a TV series of watching like that 70s show. I'm really into that right now. But like, because they're progressing, we're kind of following them through school years. A looming graduation kind of is a natural signal of change. And we know the series is ending. So I think having it span their entire high school years from 8th grade through senior year kind of makes sense and lends some of that maturity for some of the battles they have coming ahead of them. Because we do see, I think, some more mature themes and mature thinking about leadership, about loss, about the Disney magic that maybe if this had all happened within 2 years, I don't think the Keepers would have been mature enough for it.
Yeah, I think it just mostly surprised me because as we talked about in our last episode, book 5 ends on such a cliffhanger and then like immediately picks up seconds later, essentially. So I was just a little surprised by it. But I agree. I think it worked, and I feel like this was the appropriate thing. You know, having gone through 7 books, it feels like we got to watch those characters grow up in a way.
Yeah, and that was kind of fun. And we're going to talk about the characters in a second. But another interesting, unique aspect of this book was Ridley Peterson wrote this in partnership with some of his readers. Do you want to explain a little bit about that? He talked about that in the foreword.
Sure. So I wasn't aware of this at the time that it happened. I really, I read the foreword and I was like, oh, that's a cool concept. So basically the Kingdom Keepers had a following over these years of him publishing it. He has a website that's kind of like the hub for information about this book series specifically, separate, I believe, from his, generic website. And this was kind of like giving the opportunity for people to write fan fiction and have it made into the book. So it was like over a few months, they would put out different writing prompts and readers had the opportunity to write their own spin. And some of that copy got put into the book and was marked as such with credit to those specific usernames.
And yeah, so having that following, there's a year between book 6 and book 7's release. And I remember him mentioning in the foreword that he wrote in a span of like 6 months, this last book, which is really impressive. And I thought it was interesting. I wonder how much the fan feedback helped move that process along. Because to be able to write, this was a long final book.
Yeah, it's over 600
and to be able
pages.
To write so like a whole conclusion to a series while incorporating fan fiction, I would think would normally take longer, but I wonder if that helped him speed up his process or helped him maybe make decisions about where he wanted to go based off of what fans were giving input about. But I thought it was interesting. Did you see any differences between the writing? I didn't see much of a voice difference.
No, and I wonder if like they were edited to some degree, like if that wasn't exactly verbatim. I feel like if someone hadn't told me that he had done that, I wouldn't have known at all. A little, like if I really did try to think about it as I was reading it, and these are younger authors, but certainly talented. But at times I felt like it was a little more when they say like show don't tell, but we were being told. But I don't know what the writing prompts looked like, so it might have been relying on some of that more like straightforward description. But overall, I really don't think I would have known if he hadn't put that forward in.
Yeah, I think there's a little more description, particularly in the beginning of the book compared to others, and I think that's where I saw most of his indicators that there was fan fiction incorporated about how they're feeling and how the adventures get started, we'll say. I think I saw more of that KK symbol that he put in to let readers know, like, hey, this is where I took fan feedback. I think I saw that more in like the first half of the book rather than second, so I thought that was interesting that he probably had a direction. He knew how it was going to end, but maybe what adventures he chose to put in between and how he got to that end is where they got there. But yeah, we're so far removed from that now that I don't think we could like go back and look and see what he had posted, unfortunately. So we're kind of doing a lot of guesswork. But it was interesting and a different way to write a book.
I don't think I've ever seen that in any other type of literature. I mean, there's certainly things that have fan fiction followings like Harry Potter, but I don't think J.K. Rowling ever would have done that. Like, here you go, you get free reign over Harry Potter.
Right. And if we were ever going to talk to him, I think that's something I would ask him about is what is that experience like as an author taking
Yeah.
input from readers and being dedicated to using that input, not just listening and reflecting, but knowing you're going to add it into your book.
Yeah. So we're switching things up a little bit. I feel like in our other episodes, we've been a little more plot focused, but I really like this more natural flow of discussion. We always appreciate your feedback. Got a little bit of that, so not too plot heavy. This time, I feel like it'll come through as we discuss our way down and maybe talk about some highlights later. But sticking with that setting idea, the Disney Archives and the Disney Studio in Burbank are featured. That was a little unexpected for me since we've been so like park or Disney Parks and Resorts focused, which the cruise is under that umbrella. What did you like about those scenes? Like, what did you think of there?
I was so happy to go to the archives. I know I've said it more than once on this podcast. Working at the Disney Archives is my dream job. It is what I'm shooting for in my life. So I was really happy to see more of that, and that there's a dedication in the lore of Disney and Disney's history that comes through with this. But I also like the role of the archives, that everyone at the archives is in on the Kingdom Keepers. They're in on the Overtakers because they're the keepers of the knowledge. They're the keepers of holding all that stuff. So I really enjoyed hearing the archivist's role and the kids going through, shelves and seeing artwork and different drawings and then using them throughout the book. So I thought it was cool that it wasn't a one-time we go to the archives. We actually go back and forth to that so we can relate to that history.
Yeah, I loved going there. I mean, I've always been fascinated with the history of the Disney Studio. If you go back just a few months to March in Women's History Month when we were talking about ink and paint, we had a lot of little like studio nuggets there. So it was nice having learned so much from that book to then have buildings and stuff referenced. Like I didn't know about the tunnels between the buildings until we learned about those in ink and paint. And then they were in the tunnels and I was like, oh, I know what that is.
I think he even referenced ink and paint.
Yeah.
Like the inkers and painters, not the book, obviously, but ink and paint department. And it's fucking, yeah, it was kind of cool to be like, oh, we know that.
Setting ourselves up for success. Everything's connected.
And then we also meet some new characters there that the Kingdom Keepers call the Cryptos because they hang out in the crypt and the morgue of the Walt Disney Studio, which to our listeners, those are two spaces, kind of like a basement level of the studios that were used as warehouse spaces that got the nicknames the morgue and the crypt because that's where things, when they're done, go to be stored. But that turns out to be the headquarters of the Walt Disney Studios employees who know about the Overtakers and have been overseeing this and helping characters for years, where they have their little home base. So they bring the keepers there, but they're an interesting group. What did you think about the Cryptos?
So Joe is the name of kind of like the Kingdom Keeper's handler, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder if he was based on a real person because I know Becky is mentioned and that refers, I believe her name is Becky Klein, and she actually is the head of the Disney Archives and Ridley thanks her later at the end. So that's based on a real person. So then I always wonder sometimes when cast members are mentioned, like how many did Ridley Pearson pull from his actual like cast members that helped him in his research versus who's just like a figment of his imagination.
What if it's Joe Rohde?
I know, I thought that too, but then I was like, no, like I feel like he would have been he's very clear in his descriptions, so I feel like it was based on Joe Rohde. We would have mentioned the earring or something and like his like eccentric side. So it crossed my mind, then I was like, no, like this guy's too straight-laced to be considered that.
I thought they were interesting. It was kind of nice to have adults on their side that believe and know everything that's going on versus having always that conversation of how do I dance around as a keeper telling people what I do, but in a way that they might believe me instead of just scoff and walk off. So I liked having those figures and seeing adult believers in the Disney magic and what's happening. And they did kind of take the place of the parents. We see no parents.
That's a
whatsoever
good point.
in the book.
Like, we really harped on that. I feel like when we were discussing books 3 and 4, like, Finn's relationship with his mother was so important, and she comes around to his side. But once they're on the cruise, it's pretty much adult-free, and then not mentioned here either. That was a little sad to me, because I had enjoyed the character development that we saw in, like, Finn and Philby's mom in particular. So I was surprised that they're like, all right, you're just going off to California, bye, and you don't really hear anything from them.
Yeah, so we still get, I think, some of that parent-ish. I was expecting a little bit more from the Cryptos because there's that trust issue again of, but for the Cryptos, it's about how much power are these Disney employees from the studio willing to give to the keepers? How much are they willing to let the keepers kind of run the show? Because they take their jobs very seriously as the keepers of Disney's history and lore and maintaining the parks, that they're a little apprehensive about letting the Kingdom Keepers in on what their plans are on how to overtake the Overtakers. So we still kind of, I think, have that parent back and forth of trust issue, but I was kind of expecting a little bit more from like Finn and Philby, who had this gut issue of like, I don't know if we want to tell Joe. I was expecting a little bit more,
Like pushback?
maybe pushback or like some sort of plot twist of like Joe or Joe's, I forget what was Joe's like counterpart, who was like a little more shady than Joe was.
Oh, shoot, I can't remember his name. He was only in it for like a hot second.
But like, I expected something from maybe not Joe, the head of the keeper's handler, but his other colleagues, like some sort of plot twist of like, they've been feeding information to the Overtakers, and that's why they're not telling the Kingdom Keepers a lot of stuff. Like, I was expecting a little bit more, but I think it was just mirroring that trust and that parenting that we now don't have because the parents aren't there.
They're 18 now. They're like, bye.
I know, it's sad they missed their graduation because of these
Yeah.
pressing matters.
I felt really bad for, especially, like Philby and Willa are two big nerds that we love.
And they were valedictorians of their class, and like he's not there to give his
Can you
valedictorian speech.
imagine? I'd be like, you guys can wait. Like, that's such a big moment.
And they even asked that, they're like, can't we wait till like the day after tomorrow? Like, we only got 2 days till graduation. Can't this like take 48 hours, please? And they're like, no, Disneyland's
We have to
gonna
go
blow up.
now.
And as a high school teacher, like I feel for them. I go to high school every year, and it is a big moment for kids who work. So like that's 12 years of your life you've been working to get that diploma, and not to be there for your graduation. And can't imagine what Philby's mom was
I
feeling on that
know.
one. You're not just taking that away from the kid, you're taking it away from the parent.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
But I guess what Ridley was going for is to show how important this was and how important they take this mission, that they're willing to sacrifice those big personal moments of achievement to do something bigger.
Yeah. You have to have those sacrifices, as we've definitely seen in some of their relationships as well.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that. Oof. I have comments about Finn and Amanda. We will get there.
We can talk about it. It kind of goes with the opening. I felt bad because it opens at prom, and their prom's at Walt Disney World, and then Finn gets pulled away.
Yeah, Philby shows up and he's like in the middle of slow dancing with Amanda. We're getting that like cinematic heads slowly coming together. They're about to share a kiss without any problems. They're not in the middle of danger. And then Philby shows up and is like, dude, we've got a problem. And you're like, no.
Very Troy
Philby.
and Gabriella from High School Musical. I feel like we waited like for, they always kept having those almost kiss moments, and then they got interrupted.
And it's so frustrating because they have kissed before and they recognize their feelings for each other. So it's not like a final, like they're finally realizing it, but it's a moment of they can finally be themselves around each other without the threat of we might die any minute upon them. And then it's still ruined by, hey, we might actually die any minute because there's a problem in Disneyland.
Surprise!
And you're just like, oh, so close. But I think throughout the book, though, these relationships shift a lot because of some of those big moments. Which I'm just going to save that because we're going to talk about that big moment in a second. But overall, Philby and Willa still going, I think, the way they were, where they
They're
recognize
a thing, but they're not a thing.
they're a thing, but they're frustrated with each other about how they exercise their knowledge and Philby's assumptions and whatnot. And Maybeck and Charlene, oh, they were apart for a while because she gets real famous from all the footage
She's a
from,
Disney Channel star.
yeah, DComs and sitcoms and stuff. So she's been off in California for these past 3 years because she got discovered off of the Disney cruise that they're like, oh, we can do more with her than just have her as a guide in the park. She actually looks good on camera and we can use her for things. And then their reuniting is so sweet.
Yeah, I think they've actually kind of emerged more as my favorite couple because it was unexpected, and I feel like there's just a nice dynamic between the two of them.
And I don't think they make not, I don't want to say excuses, but I think they are more mature actually than some of the other keepers with their feelings. That they're like, yes, this big thing is happening, but I can still care about you and work through this at the same time. They don't have to, there's not a lot of give and take of like kind of what we see with Finn and Amanda, how like every time things are getting better for them, something in the Disney realm happens that affects their relationship because they either can't trust each other or Finn's going through an identity crisis as the leader or something like that. Whereas all these challenges that come, Charlene and Maybeck are able to be like, this is a problem, but we're okay and we're going to get through it. Like, I don't think they let it affect how they treat each other as much as some of the other keepers do. But I agree. I think they have also, I've liked their character arc a lot. So speaking of our characters and the relationships with each other, there's a plot point that we see a lot of those tensions come back, especially as they're working together in Kingdom. We do revert back from DHI technology 2.0 back to 1.6. And a quick reminder, in 2.0 that we saw in book 6, they were able to go all clear without having to clear their conscience or be without fear. They were able to just consciously be like, I want to walk through a wall right now. I want to be able to pick up an object. And they could do it without any issues. They weren't glowing. So it was just a better version. And 1.6 was the original where they have to focus on the all clear. They glow a little bit and have some of those other glitches. And we had to go back to that. How did you feel like this affected the story? Was it big? Was it not so big?
I felt like it was symbolic. Like, it wasn't too big of, like, a plot disruptor. You know, it was a bit of a challenge for them. But I found it symbolic and almost full circle because we opened book 1 with Magic Kingdom in the Walt Disney World. And now we've come to Disneyland, the original park, you know, still that Magic Kingdom-esque castle park. So, you know, the gang is coming back together. It kind of seems like, you know, Charlene's been apart. They're at different high schools. They've lived their life. They're still friends, but symbolic of them, like, returning to their original mission.
I like how what you say about that. I didn't think of it that way, but now that you framed it as being full circle, it also helps them, I guess, reconnect as friends because that challenge of going all clear, they sometimes need to be coached through it. Like, it's going to be okay. You're going to go through the wall. Nothing bad's going to happen. Like, they help each other get rid of their fear by being supportive of each other and working as a team. So I could see that. But I think they're also created some of that tension with some of the characters when they're like, they couldn't go all clear. And there are moments where some of them do get injured because they're working through fear. And that creates some obstacles in how they treat each other a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it was anything bigger in the story than just how the characters interact with the space and with each other. I don't think it was as big of like a plot issue.
Yeah, I feel like it was more significant as a plot point in the last episode where we discussed, but this was just kind of more an aside, but I did see some symbolism in it. But I did mention we're at Disneyland, so that of course means some new scenery. We get to go through attractions back like we did in books 1 through 4. Did you have any favorite moments in the attractions?
So attractions are hard for me because I've never been to Disneyland. So all I'm going off of is pictures and some videos that I've seen. Snow White's Scary Adventures I am familiar with because it was in Walt Disney World for a time. Overall, I really think I like Snow White just because I have that frame of reference, but it also kind of reminded me a little bit of Small World, how like some of the animatronics like come back to haunt you. But I also liked how the dwarves are like we can put that witch back in her place, and like they jump in, and I thought they were really fun and cute. It was nice to see Walt's original film get attention in the theme park space. And then, of course, I love Toontown, which we're going to talk a lot more about basically for the rest of this podcast from starting at that moment. But I really like Toontown. And we got some Roger Rabbit references in there, which I know for you and me.
Our prediction was right. Well, kind of right. We didn't get Roger himself, but I expected some Roger Rabbit. Before we get to Toontown, on that big moment, I guess I'll just share my attraction highlights. The Matterhorn is my favorite attraction at Disneyland. So we weren't necessarily like on the attraction itself, but it was definitely like a big scene that took place at the top of that, which isn't really accessible to guests, but it was cool to see kind of that side of things, because that is such a beacon in the park. It's taller than Sleeping Beauty Castle. Like, that's kind of, it's basically seen from almost anywhere in the park. But I think my favorite scene was over at the Indiana Jones Adventure. I was like, oh, this is just, it's not, I don't want to say classic Disneyland because it's something that opened in the 90s, but it's so distinct and unique to Disneyland, and like even 20 years after it's opened remains popular today. And I feel like there's so much you can do with that attraction, so it was cool to see that as a setting.
Yeah, and it was interesting thinking of one of those plot points. They go to the Matterhorn's used in a couple different ways, or not the Matterhorn, sorry, Indiana Jones. I was thinking Indiana Jones. They go there and Jess has some of her dreams and visions that end up being really important for the rest of the book. And it was interesting how they talked through the Indiana Jones plot of Temple of Doom. Like, this is where that God is, and that God represented the future or doom, or I forget what the specifics were, but they were able to use plot points from the movie. And I am a huge Indiana Jones fan. Even though I've never ridden the ride in Disneyland, I love those three the original trilogy.
We don't talk about the fourth one.
We won't go there. So I liked how they pulled in that lore for Indiana Jones for just to have those visions, and then it went from there. But I kind of wish there was a little bit more there, because I think it was a great scene, but it would have been great if there was almost like a battle or something there.
Yeah, it's such a huge attraction with a lot of different scenes itself as you ride through. Like, I think there could have been more there, but I understand there's lots of other things to choose from. We get to, again, kind of come full circle with the It's a Small World dolls coming back on this coast, so that was cool. But do you want to go to Toontown and kind of go through some big moments? Again, we won't fully rehash the plot, but just it's 600 pages worth, just things that stuck out as main highlights.
Yeah, so Toontown was my favorite because this was a huge turning point. And what was surprising was I was like, we're not even halfway through. When I was looking at the page numbers, I was just like, oh my gosh, there's still so much to go. How is this not like the
climax,
big blowout?
Yeah.
So in Toontown, they're there looking for clues because they're like, they found Tiadama's footprints and some other stuff, and they're like, something's happening in Toontown. So they're going to Toontown looking for one thing, and then it turns into this whole other issue. So Finn is inside Mickey's house because they know Mickey was taken from his home. Maybe there's some clue in Mickey's house. And Willa is like distracting some of the overtakers because we find Judge Doom and the Weasels, which make total sense in Toontown.
I love my deep cut villains.
Yes. And he was creepy. They talk about the dip, and he's trying to murder characters.
Creepy in the movie. That he's terrifying.
Right, but I think in the text Ridley brought that over very well.
Yeah, absolutely.
That if you haven't seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which you should, it's a classic and you need to watch it. But you get the sense, if you didn't know who Judge Doom was, you get that he is
a bad guy, and
he's a very bad
business.
Like, I don't know, who would you be more afraid of, Maleficent or Judge Doom?
I think I would be more afraid of Judge Doom because I am afraid of him in the movie.
Same, and also just because he's so mysterious, because he wears that disguise the whole time that you don't actually know who his character is.
I always get really sad in Roger Rabbit when they put that animated shoe into the dip. It just makes me like really sad each time.
Right, like Maleficent just interferes with the magic, but Judge Doom flat out erases it. He's just like, it doesn't exist. It's not nightmares. It's just gone with that. So the dip, if you haven't seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit, is a concoction that erases animation from all existence. And it's just like, oh my gosh. But the weasels are funny, and Willa has seen the movie because she's able to get them to laugh, and that distracts them enough from being able to do their job.
I like that in the characterization. Like, it recognizes that these kids, now adults, are Disney fans, and then they're relying on their own knowledge of, like, Disney film and stuff to, like, pull that kind of from the arsenal of their memory. We get to see Reunited with Wayne, and I thought what was cool was that took place at Club 33, which is an exclusive private club at Disneyland. I've never seen it, but it was cool to kind of have little descriptions there for that meeting.
Yeah, in Club 33, we know it's so mysterious, so it's kind of cool to be like, we got to go inside it, even though we didn't actually get to go inside it. So that was cool, and I'm so curious if that listening device is actually there.
Yeah, and so essentially, in order to communicate with Wayne, who's dining at Club 33, there's like microphones throughout that were allegedly put there by Walt and his Imagineers to, like, you can listen in on guest conversations. And I was like, wait, is this a real thing, or did Ridley make that up? I kind of feel like the way he's, like, researched everything, it might have been real.
Right, but they do put the caveat that Walt Disney never used it because there was controversy over,
right, but
is that ethical in a way?
It seemed like such a little nugget that, like, somebody probably told Ridley about it, like, on a tour, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna use that.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. But that also leads us circling back to Toontown eventually. And this is where we hit some very big moments. So the kids see the Overtakers, and then Wayne shows up again. And we know that the Overtakers have been trying to lure Wayne out. So the keepers are like, Wayne, go away. Like, you're falling into their trap.
It's dangerous for him. They've kidnapped him before.
Yeah, and they used, in book 7 also, they've used his DHI and his data, per se, for their purposes. That's how they broke into the archives, was a DHI that was Wayne. That's not actually Wayne. That's how they got the kids tricked at Phantasmic back in book 3, I believe. And so there's all this stuff about Wayne, and they're like, don't come here, but he knows he has to. And he gives Finn a watch. And Finn's like super confused because it's Wayne. But then
nothing's ever clear.
Nothing's ever clear. But Wayne stands up to the Overtakers, and we get another death. And that was so shocking.
A Disney death, like a real death. Like, he's dead.
Like Dillard from last book, and I didn't think we would have another big death.
I think you owe Wayne an apology for the way that you've talked about him in our past
Wayne.
episodes.
And I was, that's good writing. You led me one way and turned me another. But yeah, I was not expecting that. I was expecting a little more from Wayne in some way. And I said halfway through this series that maybe he's not an Overtaker, but there's something that he's just not letting loose. Like, there's more to him. And when he dies, I feel like we still feel that, though, that he's like, he didn't tell us everything. It's almost like when Dumbledore died in Harry Potter, and Harry's like, you left me this task with no roadmap. And I feel like Finn's in the same position. Like, all you gave me was a watch and a line. It's about
definite Harry Potter parallels.
So many Harry Potter parallels. I don't mind it. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, no, I just, as soon as I heard 7 books, I was like, oh, like Harry Potter.
And then these different deaths, friends, mentors, like Harry Potter. But it works. It's good plot devices and good characterization.
That's not a judgment or anything, just an observation.
Yeah, but Wayne's death, I do have to apologize to Wayne. Although, who knows, there is a whole nother series after this.
This is true.
Who knows? But the Overtakers, this is a big win for the Overtakers.
Definitely a big win for them. And I feel like we really see that affect those characters. I mean, this has been their mentor. How did you observe kind of how each person mourned it in a way?
I think it definitely affected Finn the most. All of the other characters, it affected them, but I think they feel sad and they're mourning, but he was definitely more of a figure for Finn, and I think more of a father figure because all we see throughout the first like 4 or 5 books is all Finn's mom says is, "We won't tell your father." So it seems like he doesn't have a good relationship with his father. So this is a big figure for him, not just a mentor, but someone who believes in him and pushes him, like he would expect his father would. So he takes it the most, and I think I see it reflected most in his relationship with Amanda. Finn is not the same anymore, and their relationship is not the same anymore.
Like a part of him is missing. Like he's just shut down, and rightfully so. I mean, he's grieving the loss of his mentor, kind of like a parallel to Harry Potter. Like Finn is the chosen one in like Wayne's eyes.
Yeah, except unlike Harry and Ginny who pull it together. I don't think Wayne and Amanda,
Finn and Amanda,
they reconcile. I think their friendship, that they're okay and they care about each other, but I think some of the romance piece is now lost because Finn
gone.
Is more concerned about that, more concerned about Wayne and Disneyland more now than his relationship with him and Amanda, and he's just like, I can't be that same Finn.
Absolutely.
She also got a little more, I don't want to say, I don't know, like she seemed not more clingy, but this kind of like turned the whole series. He's like waiting for Amanda to like fall at my feet and like be with me. And then this happens and she tries to be super caring. She's more touchy, like she hugs him. She tries to like shelter him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the word, nurturing. And I think that's what Finn would have been craving from her 1 through 6. But now that he is that way because of Wayne, it doesn't have any effect. And he's like, nope.
Yeah, I mean, since we're talking about Finn and Amanda, that really didn't play out the way I expected. We kind of don't get like a full, like an ending to them. Like it wasn't like a big moment that I was expecting.
There's a moment where they hold hands at the end and like they're both feeling better. So maybe it'll rekindle. But there was definitely, once Wayne passed away or was killed actually by the Overtakers, there's definitely like a dead stop on Finn's relationship life. And you see it, I think, the way he views that love triangle or like that mixture of feelings between Charlene and Amanda that you always hear in his inner dialogue. That is gone. Him wanting to impress Amanda while he's going through these missions with her is gone. Him wanting to make sure she's on his team is gone, or him being jealous about her being on someone else's team, that's all gone.
Yeah, that was just so surprising to me given how much attention there was, I'd say, in the first 3 books, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you want to go to, I said for a moment, Disney deaths, where meaning like, oh, plot twist, it wasn't actually Disney death. My jaw almost dropped, and I was like, oh, nope, just kidding. So Dillard, as we had said, died in book 6 at the hands of the Overtakers, though Finn wrestles with that guilt because in some voodoo magic switcheroo, it's accidentally Finn that kills him, but everybody tries to say, like, it's not your fault, you were tricked. Now we have the Dillard. So Imagineering basically walks Dillard out into the room, and everyone's like, what? But it turns out it's not actually Dillard. He has not been resurrected from the dead, but this is the Dillard, who kind of supposed to serve as like an artificial intelligence companion for Finn. Like they took some of his memories with his parents' permission to program him, but he's very robotic and is there like as a data source, like a living, breathing encyclopedia. What did you think of that? Because I was like, wait, what is happening?
Yeah, so when you read it, the chapter cuts off and there was Dillard, or like Dillard walked in. And so until you start reading the next 2 pages, do you realize what it is? But I know I texted you, I was like, what? I was like, Dillard's alive? And I don't know if you texted me, I was ahead of you.
Yes.
And you texted me like, Dylan's alive, and I was like, you have to keep reading.
Keep going.
But I had that moment too where I like put the book down for a second and I was like, what just happened? And I think that shocked me slightly more than Wayne. I don't know.
Yeah, it was
for a second I was like, wait,
unexpected.
did he not die? Did they rescue him from wherever or something? But I was like, but that was 3 years ago. That's a long time to keep on our wraps. But I thought he was interesting, the Dillard, because I think it does in a way help Finn through his grief, because not only has he lost Dillard and Wayne, he kind of gains a little bit of his friend back, and helps him process and have closure.
I think it helped
which
him
I could
process
see
both Wayne and Dillard's death,
right?
Even though it was just supposed to be for one,
right? But it is also a weird way to process of, you always have that, if I could talk to them one more time, like, what would I say? But he gets to have that, but it's
it's not satisfactory to him. I think the
Dillard,
Dillard
but you're not actually Dillard.
grows on him, but he's like, the Dillard didn't know all this stuff. The Dillard didn't have, like, athletic ability. Like, there's parts of the personality that are very clearly missing that makes Dillard, his friend, irreplaceable.
Yeah, but as a plot thing, I think the right or wrong to bring him back is definitely a personal, how you process grief or would want to process grief individually, if you would be okay with your friend being resurrected in some form. But story-wise, I think he helps move the plot, because a lot of the knowledge he gives, if they didn't have that quote walking encyclopedia, we would have had numerous more pages and chapters of them going through stuff. Having to find information about park maps and probabilities of what's going to work better or whatever. So I think he helps move the plot along while also working on the grief aspect. So I think he plays a dual role there.
In terms of characterization, I kind of liked, we had talked about in other books, like, Philby gets some leadership qualities and Finn gets jealous of that. But now we get to see Philby be jealous of this computer, because Philby's used to being the know-it-all, but the Dillard is literally a robot know-it-all. Yeah. So there's some tension there, but it's more lighthearted, and I enjoyed those moments.
And I think that was also the Dillard's role in this, is he does provide a lot of lighthearted moments, because we're in some really deep trenches here. The Overtaker's plan is they've been leaking gas throughout Disneyland so that they could legitimately blow up the place, set it afire with lightning. We finally learn what or at least it starts and ends with lightning. We know what the it starts part with is there's all these thunderstorms rolling in. Elsa appears and gives us the weather forecast.
We learned a little bit about meteorology with Elsa.
Yes, meteorology with Elsa. And we're like, oh, so they're going to use the lightning to inflame this gas. But then, so we're in this perilous situation, and then someone will say something, and then Dillard will just start spouting facts, and you're like, be quiet, Dillard. So, like, he adds some humor and light moments, I think, in these really tense times, which is important, I think, in adult novels to add that. It keeps your attention, but also helps present these situations to a younger audience.
Yeah, and I want to talk about another big reveal just as we go through kind of our final highlights here. In our last episode, we talked about Story Ming, who's introduced on the Disney cruise, kind of as like this mysterious girl who helps them. Did not see this coming. Story Ming, they're reunited with. She's kind of like hiding out in Ariel's Under the Sea adventure and just like appears and is like, oh, I'll help you guys. And as we're trying to, like, we're building towards the climax, like, though we're a few chapters away, but, like, reaching our end goal here, it turns out Story Ming is Ursula in disguise. And that was another one I texted you, and I was like, wait, what?
Craziness. And her reveal is important because they're in the middle of searching for one of the missing Mickey pieces, which we will come back to in, like, 2 minutes. And this is about to be like the culmination of like a really big mission So this is a big deal. And then she basically foils the plot because she, Violet, and Finn are searching the Mark Twain, which is the steamboat.
And Violet being Violet Parr from The Incredibles.
Yes, I liked her.
Yeah, she was fun.
It was cool to, I think she's the only, no, her and Remy, are they the only Pixar characters that came in?
That sounds right to me.
Anyway, I enjoyed her because I don't think she gets a lot of recognition in general since she's kind of ish a sidekick character, sort of. So that was cool to see her get a big role in this book. But anyway, so they're carrying out this plan and we're like, okay, we're finally going to culminate this mission. And then it all falls apart because Story doesn't do what she's supposed to. And so when they find her on the ship, they're like, Story, what the heck? And then finally it all comes apart that Ursula jumped in freshwater, but she's a saltwater creature, so she had a weird reaction to the freshwater, and that kind of revealed her a little earlier than she had planned. And so we're like, oh my god, it's Ursula. And that's just insane. So then we have a showdown with Ursula, and Finn recalls his knowledge of how to defeat Ursula from The Little Mermaid.
Mm-hmm.
Of running a ship into her.
I didn't hate that. Like, it was such a out of left field plot twist for me that I was like, okay, like, I like when I don't see stuff coming like that. So it really was like, what?
It was over pretty quickly, but it did resolve some of the issues of like, who is this Story person who came out of nowhere, who is helpful but weird at the same time. And I can't imagine, like, Ursula is cunning and she's patient, so she's a really dangerous villain because she's willing to.
She has the long game in sight.
Yeah, and she drops an interesting plot issue that might play out in the other sequel series, that she's not working for the Overtakers we've been following, Maleficent, Tiadama, the Evil Queen, Cruella. She's on her own mission, so there's a faction of Overtakers who are trying to achieve some other goals, so I wonder if that's a piece in some of his other books. But that kind of gets put on the back burner as we finish this mission. So that was interesting. But some weird thing that you and I were texting about back and forth was there is actually a Story Ming. So Ursula used her as a host. Almost.
My understanding based on how that played out was that, like, the whole time that Finn and the gang knew Story Ming, that was Ursula in disguise. Because, like, when Ursula, I guess, like, leaves her body, there's still, like, a physical Story Ming. And Finn, you know, like, rescues her, pulls her out of the water, but she has no idea who she is. So I think Story was just kind of inhabited by Ursula and has no recollection of anything that happened over the past 3 years.
Yeah, that surprised me too, because I was like, well, in her movie, she can disguise herself.
Right. But then Story Ming's like, I just want my mom. And I'm like, this girl has been missing for like 4 years. Like, I need...
And Dillard finds that out.
Yeah.
Dillard, and that's what kind of sets Finn up to be really cautious again, is Dillard's like, hey, what do you know about this Story Ming? And they're like, Story Ming has been pronounced dead for the last 4 years. And he's like,
missing at sea.
But she's here. So that was definitely an interesting plot twist. But it makes me think about, like, does Ursula need a host? Or can she disguise herself? Can she do both? I don't know why Ridley chose to go this route versus what the movie showed, if she's just able to disguise herself. So I thought that was just an interesting difference. But definitely a big reveal and a loss for them. Because she, again, Ursula with that endgame, she was helpful. So that is a loss for them, losing one of their numbers. Because their armies, the Kingdom Keeper army, is significantly smaller than the Overtakers.
Yeah, that was such a surprising piece there. But speaking of pieces, we have quite a few spread throughout the kingdom. And an important thing here is the return of Mickey Mouse. So this was hinted at in books 3 and 4, and we were very excited, but kind of we've diverted off on this churn and bog tangent in books 5 and 6. But now we are back to kind of like what this all has been working towards, and that is an original drawing of Mickey Mouse that was destroyed by the Overtakers, and that's like rendering the magic gone. And that's what all of these characters have been like battling and trying to get to. We are here to find those 13 pieces.
And that was interesting. Like, they talk about the symbolism of 13. They talk about how the lore of hidden Mickeys. I thought this was so clever. the lore of Hidden Mickeys was to help get guests to help them find pieces of Mickey around the park because the cryptos and Walt Disney Studios knew it was hidden, but they didn't know where. And they were like, yeah, we were able to recover 4 pieces of Mickey because of the Hidden Mickey program and hiding, quote, Hidden Mickeys everywhere. Like, guests actually found the Mickey we were really looking for. So I thought that was a cool take on Hidden Mickeys and why Hidden Mickeys exist.
Yeah, and I liked the tie to like Egyptian mythology. Like there's a whole that again coming full circle reminds me harkening back to like the myth of like the stonecutters quill. Like we're given a story that has ties to like the real world and real mythology, and then working through to see the connections in the park and what's supposedly hidden there.
And I like that they find one piece. We have 2 more pieces to find. By the time they're going out, they have 11 pieces. So that's why they divide into 2 teams. So Finn, Willa, and Story / Ursula. Oh, sorry, yeah. And Violet go look for the piece on the Mark Twain because they think that's there. They're looking at classic Disney opening day attractions. And then Charlene, Maybeck, and Willa go to the bank, which I liked going to Main Street.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've been on Main Street, even though it's Walt Disney World's Main Street. So I like that they went into an original building, the bank, and they go through that puzzle of getting through the safety deposit box. And I love the awe that they were in when they saw the piece and they're like, don't we need gloves or something? And they're like, well, not going to happen right now. But I loved how he portrayed the awe they were in on the history and the importance of Mickey. It's like, wow, this is Walt's drawing a piece of it. So that was pretty cool.
So unsurprisingly, they're able to bring Mickey back to life. I think we all saw that was eventually coming, but it doesn't just end there. You know, Mickey's here, he needs to help, and we have a pretty big final battle and showdown for Disneyland. Yeah,
I do want to say the Mickey and Minnie reuniting, super sweet, and that melted my heart. And the Kingdom Keepers, all of them kind of being resolved again in their mission of like he is actually real and standing in front of us is interesting. And hearing Mickey talk, like the way he talks through Violet's interpreting because she's a character and can hear characters. I like how Mickey talks. It's so 1930s. It's like not even funny. But it's like so prolific at the same time. You're just like, wow. But I just adored that. And that, like, after all of the loss and some of the hardships, it was a really nice, heartwarming moment of Mickey's back. He's reunited. But he doesn't have time. Like you said, there's this big battle coming. They're like, well, there's a storm. And Mickey's sorry, you've got like 2 minutes to get caught up to speed. Now they've been missing for all this time because here comes the storm. Elsa the meteorologist is telling us what's going to happen. And she's trying to hold off the storm, making cold fronts everywhere. And we need to defeat Chernobog. So we end up back at the Matterhorn, I think for the 3rd time, because they try to attack the Matterhorn, which kind of worked with Prince Philip and the carousel horses, but it bought them some time, really. That was about it. So we end up back at the Matterhorn because Chernobog is in the Skyway, the old Skyway passage at the top of the mountain. So we really get that Fantasia image of him over the mountain, which I thought was cool. And then we have this big battle. Now, this was interesting to me. What did you think about Mickey's role in this battle?
Yeah, Mickey didn't have as big of a role as I expected. Like, I was kind of picturing, like, more of a big, like, Phantasmic-esque showdown, and that didn't exactly play out the way I thought.
Same. They go through all those... we have, like, 3 chapters of them retrieving his his conductor baton and the Fantasia hat. And so you think once he has those, that's how Mickey harnesses and projects his magic. And Finn ends up using them.
Yeah,
so,
that
like,
was definitely unexpected.
Interesting that it's like actually the keeper's responsibility. But this whole time we're like, they can't defeat the Overtakers without Mickey. So I thought Mickey was going to have a bigger role, and I thought he was set up to have a bigger role. And then we have that twist of Finn being the one to battle Chernobog.
Yeah, so it starts and ends in lightning, and it quite literally does, because Finn sees the lightning storm coming, hops on Chernobog's back, and is struck by lightning so that they are both defeated.
Yeah, so he uses the watch that Wayne gave him, and Wayne's watch helps us find some of the pieces, but they're still like unsure what the watch is for. But the watch is like, oh, there's solid gold on here. Gold is a conductor of lightning, so Finn literally turns himself to a lightning rod, and Finn dies. And that's when I texted you freaking out.
And then
because
I
you got ahead
said,
of me at this point.
Keep reading.
And then what do we get, Courtney?
A fake Disney death.
Fake Disney death. But this is interesting. So they're in DHI form. So his DHI died, which meant he was in SBS like permanently. And then there's this shocking moment where we think all of the other keepers have died too, because they also disappear, and you're like, what is happening? But it's because the power went out with the lightning strike, and then once power is restored, they come back. But why is this a Finn fake death? We get some fun characters to come into play to save Finn. So some fun characters, we met them earlier in the book, so I think there's a little bit of foreshadowing, because they save, is it Philby who gets injured? They come and save Philby, but Rapunzel and Megara. I thought Megara was a cool deep cut.
Yeah, we don't really get a lot from Hercules.
Yeah, I think since the 90s have moved on, Hercules doesn't get a ton of attention. But they use their magic healing powers, magic hair, and Megara is good at potions and other things. And they bring Finn out of SBS and bring his DHI back online. So Finn is not actually dead, but he does defeat Chernobog.
Yeah, so Finn is our agent here of kind of defeating Chernobog, but Mickey does get to do the magic, and he takes his baton and sorcerer hat and, kind of conducts to bring the park back to its natural state before any guest can set foot in it. So this all happens overnight on one night. It's like it never happened at all. So that's wrapped up. They're still in California. I think it kind of wraps up. It's like it's 2 weeks later. They're still processing everything.
Yeah, they've been working with the cryptos, recording everything.
And they have it all.
Yeah, and there's some suspicions that some overtakers got away, because some things are missing, or they're confused. They're like, Chernobog is gone, but that doesn't mean the overtakers themselves are gone, so what are our new contingency plans? But at the same time, Philby's been sitting on stuff, and Philby finally figures out the watch.
Yeah. He ties it to a box that's in Walt's apartment. So he's kind of urging Finn to be like, I think we should check this out. And Finn's like, everything's done. Like, I don't want to do that. But finally the curiosity gets the best of him, and all 5 of our original keepers head to Walt's apartment. They open up the box, and there it ends.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that we finally get the connection of the meaning of Walt's pen. So Stonecutter Quill comes back in, which Jess has been using the whole time. Turns out she can animate using that pen, and that helped them in that battle. But that pen is going to end up in Finn's hand at some point, and the watch and the pen have to go together. And they figure out that it's about time, and they see the recording. But yeah, it just ends. Yeah. And I remember texting you. I was like, what the heck? I was like, what does the music box say? What's the message?
Very surprising to me, because it's like I knew that these were like this. I know there's other books which we'll kind of like get to in our resources, but like this is supposed to be the original 7, so it didn't have, I guess, like the finite ending I was expecting. We've talked about the Harry Potter parallels. This is where it differs. Like I feel like Harry Potter book 7
and all
wraps
is not
up. All is not well.
Not well.
I feel like Harry Potter book 7, ties up like everything they've been working for, and then like the epilogue is very satisfying. You get a glimpse into the future. So I get to that epilogue on this book, and I'm like, oh, like I'm totally expecting Harry Potter. Like it's 19 years later, and Finn and Amanda are married, and Charlene and Maybeck are married, and
they tell us what the music box said, and that they figured something out.
No, the ending is just as much of a cliffhanger. We cut again to Tia Dalma, who's like doing a chant and summoning something else, stirring up trouble. So very much a cliffhanger, and not, I don't want to say it was unsatisfactory, but like not, I think finite is the word. Like it was not the finite ending that I thought we were working towards.
Yeah, and I found this interesting because I've listened to a lot of interviews with Ridley Pearson on other podcasts, just doing more research into how he wrote these books and his motivations. And in 2 or 3 interviews, he mentions that he wanted to write a series that had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I saw the very good beginning. I saw the climax change in like book 4, 5 for the middle. But to me, I'm like, by ending with a cliffhanger though, and knowing it's like it didn't end, because we know there's another series which picks up with the music box. That's where the Return series. It's a 3-book series that follows the Keepers, and it's still the same Kingdom Keepers. So I'm like, it is an end, but it's not really an end.
Is it a 10-book series? I was told these were 7, and those are different.
So I agree. I don't mind the hook, and I think it's okay since we know there's another series and that we can get that. We can get the closure. We know it's there. But if at the time the Return series wasn't out and that was it, I would be freaking out.
Okay, but what if we get to the end of the Return series and it's the same thing? We're just
we know he's writing a third. He's writing a third installment to the series. So these books are never ending. He's writing a third installment that we heard in that he did an NPR interview, and he referenced that he's writing a third Kingdom Keeper series, but it's not our current keepers. It's a new set of keepers. But I don't know. We'll have to read and find out, Courtney.
We will. But let's just, now that we've gotten through all 7, kind of have some final thoughts on the series, stepping back from this book. What were your thoughts overall?
Overall, I thought it was a good series. I'm glad we read it. I get the hype with young readers, especially young readers who are Disney fans. It was fun going through all the parks. It was so imaginative. I would love to ask him, I think I mentioned this on our first installment, how he writes these puzzles. Because I was puzzled. I was trying to think of what are the references in Stonecutter's Quill and how to rearrange different acronyms and letters. So I would love to know that thought process and that creativity of how do you develop this long of a series, but also all those puzzles and plot twists that went into it.
Well constructed also. Like very well like planned out. I could see like how we were working through different things. So I also am glad we read it. I think my challenge was that we read this so fast. So sometimes it's where it got like a little difficult for me. It was like, we've read 7 books, over like 2,500 pages, probably, maybe 2,000. But a lot of them are over 300 pages. This one was 600. In the span of 3 months, good on us, really powered through this summer. True. Like, this is all that I read this summer.
Same. So I think I got one other book in there.
Like, I don't want to say I was burnt out, but I guess I recognize some of, like, the repetitive elements. And I feel like it would have been better for me if I was reading at my leisure to stagger it. Because if you were reading this as a fan, you were waiting for the next one to come out. Again, like Harry Potter. And I think digesting it in that form is more preferred. So if any listeners, we basically spoiled the whole series for you, but if you haven't read them and you are interested, I would probably recommend, like, don't read them all in 3 months.
Yeah, or if you're going to recommend this series to someone or to a younger reader, definitely encourage to space it out. And that might happen more naturally for you when you're not trying to meet podcast deadlines.
Scheduling around vacation and people in town. But we did it.
Yeah. But overall, I was glad that we read it. I think it's a great series. I'm glad that we will get some closure, or that we can, by looking forward into the other series. So overall, I liked it. I enjoyed myself. Which was your favorite book out of the 7?
I definitely really liked book 1 because, as we talked about in that episode, it was a nostalgia factor for me because I did read that book at 13 and then didn't realize there were additional books until 2014 and then still hadn't read it until now. I like book 1 just for the classic Magic Kingdom element, but as we're looking into like the trajectory of this series, I feel like books 3 and 4, because we segmented them in 2 parts, were my favorite, because that's where we kind of like got deeper into the lore, and it really felt like we were like setting ourselves up for something. Like that's where we get the Mickey Mouse reveal, and you and I were so excited about that.
I agree. Book 4, I think, was my favorite, and just for those reasons that some of the things we learn in books 1 and 2 seemed so isolated at the time, and then 3 starting to piece together, and then 4 you finally see how all the pieces make sense. You know we're going to end up in Disneyland. We see the Keepers really come together as a team, but like it pulls the whole series together, having that bigger picture. So I also think 4 was my favorite just for that factor as well, of bringing it all together. But I did really enjoy 7 just because there were so many characters in this book.
Yeah.
And I loved the interactions between the Keepers and the characters. And we got that a lot in 4, and then it kind of dies down again. And then
I can see
in
that
this
parallel.
one, and then in this one, we finally get like a lot of character interaction. So I enjoyed that a lot about this book.
Did you have a favorite character, whether it was one of our like, you know, classic Disney friends or one of the Kingdom Keepers?
You know, it was tough. We had some cool ones, and some only made brief cameos, like I said about the 7 dwarves.
Yeah.
Like they were in it for like 2 seconds. Prince Philip shows up to like lead the battle, and I thought he was kind of funny because he's got like his medieval speak of.
It reminded me of the princes in Into the Woods. Like, not that he was full of himself, but just that type of personality almost. Like, taking himself very seriously. The day. Yes, exactly.
You're just like, okay.
All right.
It's so medieval that it's like, seems fake. But I really think some of my favorites, or my favorite I think was Violet. And I know she got a bigger role, but I think I liked that. That really went for some of those deep cuts. Or not even deep cuts, but characters that don't get as much screen time or storylining, that she got, you know, a bigger role and got to work independently, because we only see Violet function in that family unit of The Incredibles. So I thought that was cool that she was like Minnie's personal bodyguard.
And I loved Minnie Mouse because she's just
Minnie's
so precious.
So precious.
In terms of the Kingdom Keepers, I think I ended up really liking Charlene the best. I feel like we see a lot of growth from her. Like, you kind of put your own judgments on that the world puts on her, that she says like, oh, she's just this pretty girl, like she's just a face. But no, she really sets out and proves herself and like her worth within the team.
Yeah, I really liked Charlene. I think Willa also. I'm kind of tied. Willa and Maybach had really big impressions on me also, because I think we see a big arch from both of them as well. I think Willa, Charlene, and Maybach make the biggest changes in their personalities. Or not. Yeah, like changes growing into that arch. They grow, I think, the most. Philby and Finn grow, but I think they've always know who they were. Whereas I think Maybach, Charlene, and Willa really do some identity searching. But I really liked Willa a lot by the end of this, because she's more confident in herself.
Yes.
And that she's like, I'm not a Philby sidekick. I am just as good as Philby when it comes to intellect. I have fear, but I can overcome it and, you know, climb or do what I need to, like Charlene. Like, she recognizes that she was putting herself down a lot. Like, she felt a little like the lesser keeper. But she kind of discovers that, you know, I can do things just as well as everyone else in this group, and they're not here to show me up. They're here to bring me up.
That's so true. Well, it was fun to see all of them grow. We spent 3 months with them, and they grew over 3 or 4 years. So that was very cool. I would definitely recommend the series still to any Disney fan. I think adults, there is stuff for them to enjoy within it. And if you liked it, we have other resources for you. So the one that we've really been hinting at here is The Return, which is like a Kingdom Keeper series part 2. I think, you know, we might be setting ourselves up for a 2020 summer series here.
You know, we might have to do it.
I think we do. I want to know what's in the music box. Luckily, that one's only 3 books, so a little more manageable across that time. There's also kind of like an aside series called The Syndrome, and this is a Fairley's adventure that focuses on Amanda Jess specifically and their Fairley friends as well. Do you want to touch a little more on what was revealed in that NPR interview?
Yeah, so I would say beginning of the summer, literally right before we started reading these, or as we were reading books 1 and 2, you
Yeah, it
sent
was
me a
early on.
text that Ridley Pearson did an interview on NPR in Florida, and he was talking about his new series, and it turns out there's now a third series in the making, continuing the Keepers. However, it's not our current Kingdom Keepers, Finn, Philby, Maybeck, Charlene, Willa, but a new group of kids, and I think he hinted at it might be their kids.
Yeah, so I think that's why I was so expecting this Harry Potter type epilogue. I was like, oh, who paired up with whom? But we'll see.
Who got married? Who
Yeah.
didn't?
So we're
Are
going
they
to jump
friends?
a
It'd be
bit
interesting.
into the future there. So that'll be fun. That might be Summer Series 2021. So
If
lots
they're all done
ahead.
by then.
I just want
Maybe
to
2022.
And I just want to say thank you to our listeners for, sticking with us through this newer series. We will be returning kind of to more of our normal format after this summer, and we are bringing you an author interview. We're excited to welcome back Trisha Dabb to the podcast to discuss her new book series, The Story Comes Alive, A Guide to Experiencing Movies and Characters at Walt Disney World. And this talks all things characters, autographs, dining, where to find your favorites. If you want to go back and listen to our first interview with her, that was on episode 10, and that was where she discussed tasting the magic from A to Z, the best food and beverages at Walt Disney World. So kind of similar, taking on characters, maybe like a bit of an encyclopedia form. But this is going to be a 5-book series. 2 of them are currently out, so it'd be great to hear what she's done so far and what's ahead on that.
Yeah, it'll be great to have her back on the show. You and I had so much fun interviewing her, and we had some good feedback from listeners that they enjoyed that episode as well. So we're glad to welcome Trisha back to the show, and that'll be a lot of fun.
In the meantime, you can follow us on social media. We are at Book of the Mouse on both Twitter and Instagram. And please email your comments or ideas to bookofthemouseclub@gmail.com. And be sure to leave a review on iTunes so others can find our podcast and read and listen along with us. If you want to follow me, Courtney, on Instagram, I'm at Great Guthsby, and on Twitter at Courtney_Guth.
And you can follow me, Emily, on Instagram and Twitter at the same handle, at Emily_McD. And please definitely send us your feedback. This is our first series, Courtney. We did our first series.
I think that, we grew through some of it, relied a little bit on plot, but it's hard to do when you're like, all right, we're covering stuff that relies on something else. So we are definitely open to that feedback of what worked and what didn't here.
Yeah, or if you would like to see us cover a different series, if you have any recommendations out there, we would love to hear from you, listeners. So please shoot us those emails, hit us up on Instagram or Twitter. You can direct message us or link us in something that you find online, and we would love to hear from you.
Until then, Emily, I will let you do the honors and take us out with our ending quote.
So this really touched us. I got choked up a little bit at this part of the book. Finn is asked to give a eulogy at Wayne's services, and he talks about how Wayne impacted him. And I think overall, this book series and Wayne reminds us of this same message. So Finn says, "Wayne taught me there's real magic in the world, and to trust that, to believe it, to live it."
So nice. And we hope that you find the real magic within your world and continue to come back here to our podcast for the magic in our world. Thank you.
Toodles, everybody. Till next time.
Book of the Mouse Club has no affiliation with the Walt Disney Company. The views and opinions expressed by hosts and participants are theirs and theirs alone. They do not represent the organizations or companies they happen to work for.